One small decision, one silent moment. If he hadn't stood up that day, this story would not exist. The subway car rocked gently as it sped through the underground tunnel, fluorescent lights flickering above rows of tired faces, and among them stood Daniel Carter, a 32-year-old single father gripping the cold metal, pole with one hand and holding his worn backpack with the other, his eyes heavy not from sleep, but from life itself. Just hours earlier, he had finished a double shift at a warehouse, rushed to pick up his 6-year-old daughter Lily from his neighbor, helped her with homework, cooked dinner, tucked her into bed, and then headed back out into the night to catch this train home. His legs aching, yet his heart strangely calm, because surviving another day meant he was still doing something right. As the train jolted to a stop, a woman stepped in, clearly exhausted, her posture tense, one hand pressed gently against her lower back, as if carrying more weight than just a handbag, her eyes scanning the car for a seat that didn't exist, and without hesitation, Daniel pushed himself up from the only seat he had managed to get, offering it to her with a soft smile and the simple words, "You can have my seat," expecting nothing in return. She looked surprised, then relieved, and quietly thanked him as she sat down, unaware that this small act of kindness would soon rewrite Daniel's entire life. A few passengers glanced up briefly, then returned to their phones, because kindness had become such a rare currency that most people didn't know how to react to it anymore. The train moved again, and Daniel stood there swaying slightly, thinking about Lily and how tomorrow he still needed to figure out how to pay the overdue electricity bill, how to stretch another week of groceries, how to smile for his daughter, even when life felt like an uphill battle with no finish line. At the next station, an older man entered the car, tall, composed, wearing a simple coat that concealed wealth rather than flaunted it, his eyes sharp, observant, and unlike everyone else. He didn't look at his phone, he looked at people. He noticed Daniel standing, noticed the woman seated, noticed the subtle exhaustion etched into Daniel's face, and something about that moment caught his attention. As the train continued, the woman suddenly grew pale, gripping the edge of the seat as if dizzy, and before anyone else could react, Daniel stepped forward instinctively, steadying her and asking softly if she was okay, his concern genuine, his voice calm, and that's when the older man stood up and offered help, calling for assistance as the train slowed. It turned out the woman was pregnant and overwhelmed, and Daniel stayed by her side until transit staff escorted her safely off the train, never once asking her name, never once complaining about the delay. The older man watched silently, his gaze thoughtful, measuring something invisible yet powerful. As passengers exited, something inside him shifted. He stood, grabbed his plate, and walked toward the door before he could talk himself out of it. The cold hit him like a slap as he stepped outside. Snow crunched beneath his boots as he approached Eliza, who startled slightly when she noticed him. Up close, Jack could see how young she was, her cheeks hollow with hunger, her eyes rimmed red from cold and exhaustion. He tipped his hat politely and cleared his throat. "Evening," he said, his voice gentle. "It's a cold one to be standing out here alone." Eliza nodded, unsure what to say, embarrassed to be seen in such a state. Her eyes flicked briefly to the plate in his hands, and she looked away just as quickly, ashamed of her hunger. Jack followed her gaze and made a decision that would change both their lives. "I've got more food than I can eat," he said simply. "Would you share it with me?" For a moment, Eliza thought she had misheard him. No one had offered her kindness since she arrived, and certainly not supper. I don't have any money," she said quietly, as if that settled the matter. Jack shook his head. "I'm not asking for money, just company." The wind howled around them, and snow clung to Eliza's lashes as she searched his face for cruelty or mockery. She found none, only sincerity and a hint of loneliness that mirrored her own. Slowly she nodded. Jack opened the tavern door and held it for her, ushering her into warmth and light. As Eliza took her first bite of hot food, tears filled her eyes, not just from the relief of eating, but from the unexpected kindness of a stranger. Jack sat across from her, quietly content to watch her eat, feeling a warmth he hadn't known in years. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but inside the tavern on Christmas Eve, two lost souls shared a meal, and unknowingly, the first moment of a future neither had dared to hope for. The tavern slowly emptied as the night wore on, laughter fading into the hush of falling snow. Eliza finished the last bite of food, her hands trembling slightly as warmth returned to her body. She looked at Jack with gratitude so deep it frightened her. "Thank you," she said softly. "You don't know what this means to me." Jack shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. "Seemed like the right thing to do," he replied, though he knew it was more than that. There was something about Eliza, her quiet strength, the way she carried herself, despite hardship, that stirred something he thought long gone. They talked then, hesitant at first, like two people unsure of the ground beneath their feet. Eliza told him about the letter she had received months ago, the promise of marriage and security out west, and the long journey that ended in abandonment. Her voice wavered as she admitted she had nowhere to go and no idea what would come next. Jack listened without interruption, his jaw tightening with each word. He had seen cruelty in the world, but the thought of her being left alone on Christmas Eve struck him deeply. When she finished, silence settled between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Jack broke it with a question he hadn't planned to ask. "You got a place to stay tonight?" Eliza shook her head, shame coloring her cheeks. "I was going to sleep near the station," she admitted. Jack's answer came before doubt could stop it. "You won't be doing that," he said firmly. He explained that he had a small ranch just outside town. Nothing fancy, but warm and safe. "I've got a spare room," he added quickly, not wanting her to misunderstand. "You'd be welcome, at least until you figure out your next step." Eliza hesitated, fear and hope battling within her. Trust did not come easily anymore, but something about Jack felt steady, honest. Finally she nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks as relief washed over her. The ride to the ranch was quiet. The only sound the crunch of snow beneath the horses' hooves. The farmhouse glowed softly with lamplight when they arrived, and Jack helped Eliza down, carrying her suitcase without comment. Inside, the house was simple but clean, the fire crackling warmly in the hearth. Eliza stood there, overwhelmed by the kindness of a man who owed her nothing. As Jack showed her the spare room, she felt a strange sense of peace settle over her, like she had stepped out of the storm at last. Days turned into weeks, and Eliza stayed on helping with chores, learning the rhythms of ranch life. Jack never asked her to leave, and she never felt like a burden. They talked in the evenings, sharing stories, laughter, slowly replacing the loneliness that had defined them both. Jack admired Eliza's resilience, her determination to build something meaningful from nothing. Eliza, in turn, saw Jack's quiet generosity, the way he helped neighbors without seeking thanks, the loneliness he masked with work. What began as gratitude grew into friendship, and friendship deepened into something neither could ignore. On a clear winter morning, Jack finally spoke the words he had been holding back. He told Eliza she was welcome to stay, not just as a guest, but as a partner if she wished. He didn't promise wealth or ease, only honesty, respect, and a home built on shared effort. Eliza listened, heart pounding, and realized that what she had found was far greater than the arrangement she had traveled west for. This was a choice freely given, rooted in kindness and mutual care. With tears in her eyes, she accepted, knowing that the plate of food shared on Christmas Eve had become the foundation of a life neither had imagined. Years later, the story of how they met would be told with smiles by the fire, a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. If this story touched your heart, remember that more powerful stories of hope, compassion, and unexpected love are waiting for you here. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story that proves even in the coldest moments, kindness can light the way.